The Democrats are mad that the Supreme Court no longer kowtows to whatever they want at that particular moment. Because of that, they're going to try to change the way that it operates, even though it would be worse off in the long run. But that's just the beginning of this situation. Of course, they think that all that matters is right now and how they can fix the supposed problem that they're facing now, not about anything in the future that it may cause destruction to the way that we actually work in America here. Also happening in the world, we have Israel targeting the leader of Hamas and killing him. And of course, instead of Joe Biden actually celebrating this and being happy that the leader of a group that is actually targeting our ally is now dead, he is mad that they didn't just take the attacks from Hamas and leave the situation alone. All of that and more on today's episode.
Facts over tracks, isn't that spitting slow, spitting fast? I could roast, I could gas, think I'm okay at last, but I don't know if that can erase all the past.
So it's just a very stupid situation, of course. Every single time we talk about Joe Biden, every single time we talk about the situation that this administration that we have in America right now as our president is doing, it's just a laughing stock of the whole entire world. And it's very, very sad. Every single time Joe Biden has an opportunity to just sit here and say, listen, I disagree. I had my rhetoric be really, really high. I'm going to take it down a notch, stuff like that. Instead of him following through with that and exactly what he said that he was going to do, but I guess we're going to forget about that, I guess. Instead of doing that, he's just going to say that he's just going to redo the whole entire Supreme Court. He does not care if the Supreme Court has been a thing for so long and we've always had the system in place, but just because you don't agree with it, stuff like that, he does not care. Biden has now unveiled a plan to dramatically change the Supreme Court, and he attacks recent decisions. Instead of sitting here saying, well, I disagree with the Supreme Court and we will be fighting the Supreme Court. No, he's going to say, no, we're just going to overhaul the Supreme Court and we're going to put term limits on you. Now, the reason why we should have term limits on the Supreme Court is so simple to understand. I will break it down here. If we have term limits on the Supreme Court, we will have Supreme Court justices making rulings only because of the fact that they have ambitions for higher office in the future. Or by higher office, I mean the presidency. We would have Supreme Court justices do things just so they can get the administration that they work for happy that they actually kowtowed to them. And then they will have the full endorsement of the administration that they kowtowed to when they go and run for presidential office in the future, or the Senate or Congress. They can use the Supreme Court now to their advantage and say that I was in the Supreme Court and I did this, this, and this, so it will make everything political. That's the reason why we have the Supreme Court being no term limited. We have no age restrictions on the Supreme Court because of the fact that that they know that there will be ambitions for the Supreme Court to do so in the future. And if there is going to be term limits on the Supreme Court, then we also have to put an age restriction on the presidency. Now, of course, everybody knows that you need to be at least 45 years old or older to run for the presidency, but it should be capped off on 65. So you have 20 years to run for president. If you do not make it within that time, then that's it. Maybe 65, maybe 75. That's like pushing it. And then that's what the Supreme Court should cut off at. If you're above 75 years old, then maybe you should step down. But then you can't run for president after that because of the fact that you're too old already. So then you could just take the rest of your time off. So if we were to do that, that would be the only possible solution, is to cap everything in government office at 75 years old, and then saying that after 75 years old in the Supreme Court, you would have to step down after that. So that would be the only solution, and I'm not even endorsing that decision. I'm just saying that could be a solution that we could look to in the future, but I'm not even saying that that's a good solution. I'm just saying that could be something that is worth looking into at bare minimum. That's all I'm saying. But the thing is here, Joe Biden does not even want to do that. He wants to implement a 12-year law that the term limits what the Supreme Court justices would have to follow. So every 12 years, we would have a new set of justices, but this would be the same exact thing as packing the court. So what? So if you implement something in your predecessor, and then 12 years later, boom, you have to get out. And then what does the Supreme Court justices do? Because they were in the highest office of the land, and then now they go into what? To the Congress and start legislating, but they were just on the executive branch. I don't know. It's just too confusing. It just does not make any sense. President Joe Biden called for term limits for the Supreme Court justices on Monday after weeks of attacking previous court decisions on the presidential immunity and abortion. In an op-ed in the Washington Post, which Joe Biden did not write whatsoever, he did not, Biden revealed three major changes that he, or his administration, I should say, wanted to be done at the High Court as he finishes his presidency. These changes include include the term limits for justices, a new ethics code for justices, and an amendment cracking down on presidential immunity, which does not make any sense at all because of the fact that he would know that he would be signing up for charges against him if he does take off presidential immunity. Now, obviously, US president, when you get into a war, you have to make those ultimate decisions about if you should get into a war, if you should not get into a war, yada 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 yada. But the thing is, at the same exact time, if you say that presidents do not have immunity, then what, you can prosecute a president for just protecting America? What if they made the wrong decision based on the evidence that they had at the time? Just like how we went into Afghanistan, because we saw that they had weapons of mass destruction and stuff like that. That was off of false information, but we know that now, but we didn't know that back then. So that's a total different thing here. The nation was founded on a simple yet profound principle. Joe Biden did not write this. You can already tell. No one is above the law, Biden wrote. Not the president of the United States, not a justice in the Supreme Court of the United States, no one. Which does not make any sense because of the fact that he thinks that he's above the law because he's been using his governmental power to influence decisions and influence things that are abroad since he first went into the Senate when he was back, when he was a child, to be too young. The youngest senator. So I just don't get what he's saying here. Biden claimed that the most recent 6-3 decision to side with the former President Donald Trump's assertion of broad presidential immunity for exercising core constitutional powers would allow presidents to commit crimes and to put virtually no limits on what the president can do. In response to that decision, Biden is calling for an amendment that will make clear that there is no immunity for crimes a former president committed while in office. Biden's campaign manager recently referred to the court as the Trump Supreme Court and said that it was out of touch with the founders intended over the court's immunity decision. He also attacked the court over its decision to overturn Roe v. Wade and return the issue of abortion to the states. Biden, who has appointed just one Supreme Court justice, also called for term limits for justices that would make the timing for Supreme Court nominations more predictable and less arbitrary. It's not arbitrary. The Supreme Court justice is appointed just because of the fact that the Supreme Court justice that was formerly there either passed away or stepped down or was impeached in a small percentage of time. So it's not arbitrary. It does not even make any sense, he wrote. And it would reduce the chance of that any single presidency radically alters the makeup of the court for generations to come. But that's not up to you, Grandpa. That's not up to you to decide whether or not a president can make decisions for the Supreme Court justices. Like, what are you even talking about? You do realize that Obama and Bill Clinton both appointed Supreme Court justices in their terms. So what are you saying here? That they shouldn't have? Just doesn't make any sense. Biden also called for a new ethics code on the court amid a barrage of media coverage targeting conservative justices Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito over financial disclosures. Liberal Justice Sonia Sotomayor has also faced questions after the Daily Wire reported that she declined to refuse herself for multiple copyright infringement cases involving book publisher Penguin Random House, despite having been paid millions by the firm for a book deal. For example, undisclosed gifts to justices from individuals with interest in cases before the court, as well as conflicts of interest connected with January 6th insurrectionists, raise legitimate questions about the court's impartiality, Biden wrote. Biden's sweeping proposals will likely face an uphill battle as many Republicans are already come out against them, saying that the president is seeking to further politicize the court, which I completely agree with, because how is this not a politicization of the court system? Making sure that the Supreme Court justices now have a carrot and a stick to actually make decisions that are going to help them in the future for higher political office or actually hurt them in the future for higher political office. Because how can you sit here and then simply just say that, oh, the Supreme Court justices should be able to run for political office, which is exactly what you're doing when you implement term limits for them. Because right now there's no ambitions for higher office because you're in there for your life. But the thing is, if you're not in there for life, what are you going to do? If you're only in there for 8 years, you're just going to be the Supreme Court justice and then step down and then retire. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to say, no, I'm going to run for president now. I ran as Supreme Court justice and now I'm going to run as president. That's what people are going to do, and that's not what we want in America. So, because that's a highly politicized system, of course. So moving on to the next article, we actually have another Daily Wire article. We have Joe Biden is blasted for saying that Speaker Mike Johnson is dead on arrival. Now, this might be out of context. It might not be. I don't think that it is because of the fact that he he's just dumb. Now, I actually read this article already because I wanted to just make sure that it was not out of context. And the reason why I'm saying that it might be out of context is because Joe Biden does not even know how to talk. So he obviously does not mean that Mike Johnson is dead on arrival. He is just being stupid. Like, I cannot explain it any farther than that. I'll explain the situation. Speaker Mike Johnson recently came out with a statement saying that President Joe Biden's proposal to radically overhaul the United States Supreme Court would tilt the balance of power and erode not only the rule of law, but the American people's faith in our system of justice. This proposal is the logical conclusion of the Biden-Harris administration and congressional Democrats' ongoing efforts to delegitimize the Supreme Court. Their calls to expand and pack the court will soon resume. It is telling that Democrats want to change the system that has guided our nation since its founding simply because they disagree with some of the court's recent decisions. This dangerous gambit of the Biden-Harris administration is dead on arrival in the House, which is a great deal because of the fact that this is not a good law at all. Now, obviously, we just broke it down before. This is exactly what Joe Biden wants to do. Term limits for 12 years and stuff like that. He wants to make sure that the Supreme Court is highly politicized. But now he's saying that it's dead on arrival in the House of Representatives. That's it. You're not going to pass this bill without my support and Republican support, and this is dead on arrival. And then the thing is, a media reporter went up to Joe Biden and said, "What do you think about Mike Johnson saying that this bill is dead on arrival?" And President Joe Biden said that that's what he is. And then this reporter asked for clarification and said that he is what? Biden responded, "He is dead on arrival," which does not make any sense. So that's exactly why I'm saying that this might be out of context because of the fact that Joe Biden just does not know what he's actually saying. Not because of the fact that I think that this media reporter took this out of context. I think that Joe Biden is just senile and old and does not even know what he's doing. And maybe he is cynical like this. He's dead on arrival. He wants to beat up Mike Johnson. He's just an old man. He's like, "Ew, get out of here. I'm going to smack you." This is a seniority. This is showing that you are not capable of being president anymore, Grandpa. So let me see here. We're going to listen to this thing together.
Speaker Johnson said it's dead on arrival. And he is? How are you going to get this go? How are you?
Like, it doesn't even make any sense. That he is what? That he is dead on arrival. What do you mean he is dead on arrival? What are you even talking about? It just does not make any sense whatsoever. Goodness, I just can't. I have no words. Joe Biden is just so stupid. Oh, goodness. Mike Johnson is dead on arrival. So is this a threat? Are you threatening? Are you threatening the Speaker of the House? Imagine if Trump was to do this, that Nancy Pelosi is dead on arrival. Like, they're going to be like, "Oh my God, this is going back to the days that men used to beat up women and blah, 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 blah." But now Joe Biden can do that against another man and say that Mike Johnson is dead on arrival. What he's going to say, "Come in here, Mike Johnson. I'm going to fight you in the octagon." Mike Johnson would have this in the bag. Oh, this would be so funny. I would live stream that. That would be hilarious to see. If this was an actual octagon fight and we have Joe Rogan over here, and Joe Biden is down. 1, 2, 3, and he's done for. Oh my God, that would be hilarious. Oh my goodness. That would, or the slap challenge, just one slap. That's it. That's all that they get. And then the old man's like, and his teeth come flying out. Oh my God, that would be hilarious. But the thing is, I'm not even the one just fantasizing this. Joe Biden's the one that says that Mike Johnson is dead on arrival. So I'm not even over here, quote unquote, threatening violence. All I'm doing is saying that, listen, let's have the president at his word and say that if he wants Mike Johnson to be dead on arrival, let's take him up on that. What does he mean by this? Is he gonna fight Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House? "Oh, Mike Johnson, you make me mad. I'm gonna fight you. I'm gonna give you the 1-2 Chris Brown." It just does not make any sense here. I'm gonna give you the Will Smith. I'm gonna slap you. Keep my wife's name out your mouth. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Does not make any sense whatsoever. So, moving on to the next article, we actually have 3 pro-lifers are actually being targeted by the Biden administration, and they are actually sentenced to house arrest, which does not make any sense because of the fact that if you are trying to protect human life, now you are actually sentenced to house arrest because they do not find kindly your type of people. That's exactly what the Biden administration is saying. So, 3 pro-life activists are targeted by the Biden administration over a peaceful protest at the Tennessee abortion facility, where they are sentenced by a federal judge on Tuesday to 3 years of probation, including 90 days of house arrest, which is just stupid. And I hope that the court in Nashville actually actually starts realizing what they're doing here, because Planned Parenthood actually takes baby parts and sells them on the dark market. And this is not a conspiracy. Actually, the Planned Parenthood actually knows that they're doing this, and I would love for them to actually go to court for this situation. So imagine they sue me for defamation, and then they have to prove in court that they're not selling baby parts. I would love that, actually. Judge Chip Benzie sentenced Eva Zestow, James Zestow, and Paul Place, who were convicted in April of violating the quote-unquote FACE Act, which was implemented by Bill Clinton to actually protect churches and then actually protect abortion centers, the FACE Act, which is a arbitrary act that just says that they're bipartisan, but they're not bipartisan because they're not going to implement this policy actually bipartisanship. They're not gonna apply this evenly amongst these two cases. If they see a protester at an abortion clinic, oh, you violated the FACE Act, you will go to jail. And then if somebody goes and sets a fire to a church that's been there for decades and millennia, they're gonna say, well, we just don't know who did it. I mean, we really don't know who did this. I'll look into it. I'll let you know. And then they just never get back to them. So they were convicted in April of violating this quote-unquote FACE Act, the Clinton era, guaranteeing entry into the abortion facilities. The trio faced a maximum penalty of 6 months in prison, 5 years of probation, and a $10,000 fine. The three were also sentenced to time served, which back in October of 2022, when they were first charged, the terms of their house arrest would include exceptions for work in church, which is the bare freaking minimum. The Biden Justice Department charged the activists over the participation in a pro-life protest at Cara Firm, a Mount Juliet, Tennessee abortion facility on March 5th, 2021. On that day, a group of demonstrators gathered on the second floor of an office building in the hallway outside Cara Firm. The group prayed, sang hymns, and urged women showing up to the clinic not to get abortions, which is not bad. It's saying, do not kill your children. Please rethink your decision here. Prosecutors said that the protesters sat in front of the doors at Carafem and blocked women from coming inside. Frenzy convicted them during a bench trial in April after less than 30 minutes of deliberation. No, because they just, every single time they're saying that they blocked entry doors and they blocked the pathway to actually get there. They didn't. They were just nearly there. And then they're saying, you blocked my door. Okay, well, you're standing like 20 feet away from the door, my guy. Are you that big that you can't go to the door because somebody's standing 20 feet away from the door? It just does not make any sense whatsoever. You're not as wide as you are tall. You can fit through this door, my guy. You have plenty of room. I mean, that's more than social distancing. During the trial, lawmakers for the defendants said that the clients were merely practicing their faith in a peaceful manner, which is 100% true. Place's lawyers argued that the trial demonstrated massive overreach of the federal government, which is very true, saying that the Biden administration was prosecuting people who were simply expressing their beliefs in a non-violent way, which is our First Amendment right. But Joe Biden does not care about that because he's a quote-unquote Christian, he's a Christian. It doesn't even make any sense. He's not. The three protesters spoke of their faith, their Christian faith, when given an opportunity to talk during Tuesday's sentencing hearing. James Zestow said that he was obeying a higher law when he took part in the protest and expressed his belief that the preborn children are people. Eva Zestow said that her only ambition was to love God and her neighbors. She said that God personally identified with the weak and vulnerable, and she did not want anyone harmed at Seraphim. Choking up, she read a poem she had written about the value of children. Place said everything that he did at the Seraphim was done out of love, adding that the children are a blessing from the Lord, which is completely true. Over a dozen supporters gathered Tuesday morning outside of the courthouse to pray and sing before the sentencing. They sang songs, Christian hymns, including Rescue the Perishing and Stand Up, Stand for Jesus. Earlier this month, 4 others were charged with violating the FACE Act and a felony charge of conspiring against civil rights over the same protest was sentenced in Nashville. One protester, Calvin Zestow, was given 6 months in prison over his participation to the protest. The Justice Department had requested over 2 years of incarceration. Okay, so where is Bill Lee? Isn't Bill Lee the governor of Tennessee? I'm just gonna look this up because I don't remember the governor. Yeah, okay, where's Bill Lee over here? Bill Lee needs to go out and use his power if he does have the power. I'm not 100% sure on this. I'm actually trying to look up Tennessee law to actually see if Bill Lee does have the ability to actually pardon people in Tennessee. Tennessee governor has the power to pardon. Tennessee Constitutional Art 3 and 6 governor advised by the Patrol Board. Tennessee Code and 40-28-104 must report grants and reasons to legislator when requested. Tennessee Code and 40-27-101, 107. Public hearing and notice to prosecutor is required. Board members must send names of those who is recommending, and those it is not to legislative committees. The governor must notify AG and DA before grant is made public. They notify victim. Tennessee Code and 40-27-110. Completion of sentence, additional period of good conduct, and demonstration of rehabilitation is and need. Pardon has a limited legal effort and does not restore civil or other rights for which one must go to court. Tennessee Code and 40-29-105 may serve as grounds for expungement and thus restoration of firearm rights. See Tennessee Code and 40-32-101H. Uneven, regular in recent years. The annual reports of the Board of Patrol have included no information about the pardon grants, but news reports indicated that Governor Haslam, 2011 to 2019, granted a total of 35 pardons in a handful of communications from 2003 to January. Governor 2011, Governor Phil Brinson granted 22 pardons in cases collected over his 8 years in office. Okay, so why doesn't Bill Lee pardon these people? I call on Bill Lee to pardon these people. I mean, Bill Lee's not my governor, but it's completely within the right of him to actually pardon these people. Why is Bill Lee not pardoning these people? These people are unfairly prosecuted for actually just protesting silently out of abortion clinics, and they're quote-unquote violating the FACE Act. And now, as governor of Tennessee, you have the right to pardon these people. Pardon these people. We have this corrupt judge sentencing these people after 30 minutes of deliberation. That's not a fair trial. We have Eve Zastro, James Zastro, and Paul Place, who was convicted of this, and we also have more people that were convicted of these. Earlier this month, other people were actually charged with the same exact thing. So Bill Lee, pardon these people. Let's see you in action. Let's do these things. Let's get these things done. We need to actually make sure that these people that are actually using their First Amendment right to actually make sure that these people are not killed. These babies that are innocent are not killed, and that's all that they do. And then all of a sudden they're prosecuted to the highest extent of the law, and they're forced in their house for years and years and years just because what? Okay, they're forced in their house for 90 days. My apologies, but then they are having probation for 3 years. They should get immunity. They should not even need to be in their house confined for 90 days. This annoys me. This is just annoying. Bill Lee, come on, just pardon them. Like, okay, if it does not actually go through because of the fact that there's so much contingencies and stuff like that, at least try. Just pardon them. They did not break any law. They used their First Amendment right. They were silently protesting outside of an abortion clinic, and then they're quote unquote saying that they were blocking the entrances. Let's see the security footage. Let's actually see this thing, because it's not true whatsoever. That's why I'm calling on Bill Lee to actually pardon these people. It's what needs to be done. With that being said, we're going to move into the headlines of the week. Moving right into the headlines of the week, we actually have a Federalist article. We have targeting law professor Turley again proves NewsGuard is a powerful scam. So, NewsGuard, the self-appointed arbiter of media reliability, appears poised to peddle some more of its own misinformation. NewsGuard, the self-appointed arbiter of media responsibility, appears poised to peddle some of its own misinformation, this time about George Washington University law professor Jonathan Turley. Turley expressed NewsGuard's apparent plans in a Saturday column of The Hill. In quote, the most chilling words of today. "I'm from NewsGuard and I'm here to rate you." The cheered professor of law detailed a recent communication he received from the ratings grant, roughly a week after he pinned an earlier column for The Hill, in which he criticized NewsGuard as infested with a pro-Democrat and left-wing media bias. The for-profit organization came knocking, Turley explained. NewsGuard has decided to now review the blog the law professor hosts at jonathanturley.org. Turley explained, "That alone is curious because many of the articles posted at Resipla, I cannot pronounce that, have been published by other NewsGuard rated outlets such as The Hill and the Wall Street Journal. Beyond that fact, and the suspicious timing of the NewsGuard's decision to evaluate the law professor's writings, the questions posed were bizarre," as Turley explained. For instance, why would he call his blog Res Espla Liquidor sick? The thing itself speaks. Could you explain the reason to this non-lawyer? Res Espla Liquidor further is defined in the header as the thing itself speaks, which I think speaks for itself, Turley equipped. While one might laugh off the ridiculous typo-infused question, NewsGuard's outreach of Turley included a much more condescending and, as the law professor stressed, illuminating inquiry. Quote, I cannot find any information on the site that would signal to readers that the site's content reflects a conservative or libertarian perspective, as it is evident in your articles. Why is your perspective not disclosed to give readers a sense of the site's point of view? NewsGuard reviewer queered Professor Turley. Okay, so I need to stop you right there. You're sitting here and saying that a website must say that it is conservative or libertarian, but CNN can sit here and say that they're non-biased and they're gonna look at the facts first. Fact check. Oh, facts first. And they're gonna post these articles all the time saying facts first. Oh, go. Yeah, they're lying again. As if they're like the mainstream fact checkers and they're sitting here and they're being non-biased, sipping their tea with their pinky up. No, CNN's not doing that. And then MSNBC is gonna sit here and say, we are the truth. You need to trust us. And then they're sitting there with their croissants in their hand. They're like sitting back, just sipping their tea, just like CNN. They're all gathering around with their tea. They're saying, oh, ha, 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 you are gonna get fact checked. You're not the mainstream. You're not the person that's the most center. You're not sitting here saying, I have the facts by my side, like Dr. Fauci used to say. No, you're not sitting here doing that at all. You're a leftist journalist. Don't sit here and act like you're just a non-biased perspective. CNN and MSNBC, just like how Fox News is not a non-biased perspective, just like how I'm not a non-biased perspective. You know how you get a non-biased perspective is by getting information from both sides. That's what I like to do. I like to actually look at reality and look at the actual situation that's ongoing and sit here and say what makes sense, what actually is grounded in factual reality. And instead, people like to sit here and say, no, that's hurting my feelings. I don't like it. Okay, I don't really care if it hurts your feelings or not. It's a fact. And this is a fact that CNN and MSNBC have not came out and said that they're left-leaning at all. They're sitting here saying that they are the truth. They're sitting here saying that they're in the middle of things. They're looking at things objectively, quote unquote. They're not. Oh God, I just can't. I can't read anymore. No, because they're going to sit here and say that conservative sites must say that they're conservative, but then CNN and MSNBC can go and claim that they're the barrier of truth and fiction. They are protecting you, the reader, you, the listener, from this false and misinformation and disinformation. Shut up. Save me that BS. Nobody trusts you at all. Okay, moving into the next article, we actually have another Federalist article. We have, yes, Kamala Harris ran Biden's early disastrous efforts to increase mass migration. The President of the United States has signed Kamala Harris to lead the effort of the administration's signature border security strategy. Okay, fine. Vice President Kamala Harris never held an official government title called Border Czar, but the media fact checkers and the partisan fans who have zeroed in on the spectating her from what the euphoric title, as though this silly contest over rhetoric absolves her of the responsibility of the worst mass migration crisis in American history, does not cut the anchor line. The President of the United States assigned Kamala Harris to, quote, lead the effort of the administration's signature border security strategy. The main one he chose above all others for ending mass illegal immigration over the southern border, that the strategy was to elevate the so-called root causes, spurling out migration from its most common sources, Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador, also known as the Northern Triangle. The president and his top lieutenants regarded the root causes doctrine, which calls for nation building to induce aspiring immigrants to stay home instead, as central to his entire border migrant strategy, and found Harris a highly willing, eager root causes chief. Quote, I look forward to engaging in diplomacy with government, with private sector and civil society, and the leaders of each in Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras to strengthen this democracy and the rule of law and ensure shared prosperity in the region. Harris responded after her presidential appointment at a March 24, 2021 press event announcing her new role. A few months later, National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan retaliated that Harris would lead a, quote, whole of government approach to, quote, lead the administration's work in our efforts with Mexico and the Northern Triangle, a testament of the importance of the administration's placing on improving the conditions in the region. Inadmissible numbers, hard and inadmissible facts also show that Harris's leadership over the implementation of the United States root causes doctrine was a complete failure, as many in American history. As any American history, it rightly saddles her and her boss with what happened to this country as a direct result. A record smashing 10 million foreign nationals crossing the southern border in 36 months because the top team let most of them stay in. Before COVID, in fiscal year 2019, the United States Border Patrol apprehended a total of 609,775 Guatemalans, Hondurans, and Salvadorians crossing the border. By the end of Harris's first year overseeing the root causes strategy in 2021, that number was 701,049, almost 100,000 more, or if you were to get more specific, 98,000 more. I'm sorry, the math is not mathin'. 81,000 more. So around there, yeah, 89,000. Okay, during the next 2 years of the Harris overseeing the root causes doctrine, Border Patrol encountered another 1,036,904 such immigrants. So far this fiscal year, through the end of June, Border Patrol has encountered another 347,911, which projects out to another more than 500,000 by fiscal year's end in October 1st. That's more than 2 million more immigrants from the Northern Triangle during those 4 years to somehow buy away bad conditions in tourist countries, but never explaining how and when or offering accountability benchmarking. The Biden administration pledged $3 billion down payment to Central America over 4 years, including $860 million in fiscal year 2022 and $986 million in fiscal year 2023. Harris showed no remorse to downplay, hide, or demolish her role leading this essential administration strategy. In fact, she later held press conferences boasting of heading some American companies to invest in Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador as a positive result of her personal leadership, borrowing a failed strategy from Europe. But failure was predictable from the start because root causes doctrine is a total ruse. The administration merely borrowed the idea from European leftists who'd been feeling at it for 40 years already. That's right. When the Biden campaign in 2020 first appointed Europe's failed liberal social engineering experiment as its chief immigration policy, starstruck American media never bothered to dig into its long, sorry history or demand details of how much it would cost. No one asked when exactly the White House would consider Central America fixed, enough to declare United States border security success. Now, it's time to finally dig as Harris gears up to take her boss's job. It's never too late to make up an earlier professional journalism failure. Of course, because of the fact that they are in the mainstream, so they can just sit here and say, well, this never happened, or this never happened, or, well, you should just stop paying attention to that because it's just not true. Okay, well, what do you mean it's just not true? It is true. It's a very stupid situation here. So, what's a very stupid situation too is that the fact that the Biden administration just does not want Israel to do anything. If they say here and then they actually protect themselves by killing their chief rival in the Middle East right now, and then they say here and say now, no, you're not going to cause harm to us anymore because we're going to just kill your leader altogether, then the Biden administration says, no, why would you ever do that? They just want Israel to just sit back idly by when children are killed and stuff like that in the streets. No, nobody's going to do that. So what they did is they went and they targeted Hamas's political chief and they killed him in Tehran. So Hamas political chief Ismail Haniyeh, a billionaire who ordered murder of luxurious exile in Dobar, Qatar, was reportedly killed early on Wednesday in Tehran, Iran, after the presidential inauguration. Haniyeh was in Tehran for the inauguration of the new president Mossad Pezeshkian and met with Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, together with the leaders of other terrorist groups, such as Palestinian Islamic Jihad and the Houthis. Multiple news sources citing Iranian television says that Haniyeh was killed and that Hamas confirmed the death. Iranian Press TV reported. Ismail Haniyeh, the head of the political bureau of resistance of the Palestinian movement, Hamas, has been killed in the attack of the Iranian capital, Tehran. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps announced on Wednesday that morning that the Haniyeh and one of his bodyguards were killed when their residence was hit in Tehran. The statement said that the attack is under investigation and the results will be announced later on the day. The New York Times confirmed the news, citing Iran's terrorist Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, Iranian blah 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 blah. This has been killed, blah blah blah. The news came hours after Israel confirmed that it has killed Hezbollah's second-in-command, Fard Sanad Masad, who was responsible for rocket attacks on Israel in the 1986 and 1983 United States Marines barracks bombing in Beirut. And of course, they were giving millions and millions of dollars for any information on these two people, and now they are killed. The wanted poster released by the United States Department of State rewards for the Justice Program shows Telio Hamia left, and Fud Sakura, a Hezbollah official, said Wednesday, October 11, 2017, that multi-million-dollar reward offered by the Trump administration in return for the information leading to the arrest of its operatives are part of an ongoing United States efforts to demonize the group. And the official was reacting on Wednesday to the State Department's announcing a total of $12 million in rewards for information leading to the location or arrest of the conviction of two senior level leaders of Lebanese Shia militant group. Rewards for Justice Visa AP. Israel also killed Hania's 3 sons in a targeted strike in Gaza in April. It remains unclear what the strike in Hania will mean for hostage negotiations, in which he played an indirect role via Egyptian and Qatari mediators. Yeah, of course, because this leader of Hamas is not even in Gaza. So you are sitting here in another state, just in another country, just protected because of the fact that that country that you're in is not in war, and you're sitting here saying, oh no, we must continue the war against Israel. You're not even in the state, in the country that you govern. Imagine the president of America gets America into a big war, and America is getting bombed all over the place. And then the president of America, instead of staying here and going into a bunker at least in America, you know what he does? He goes and flies to Australia, the opposite side of the world, and says, catch me if you can. And he goes to Australia and he makes press releases from there in a 5-star hotel. Imagine that. Imagine the outcry of the American public when we find out that the president of America left us to deal with the problem that he started. I can't. There's no words for scum like that person to leave your people in the face of war. I mean, the bare minimum, you started the war. You might as well stay for the consequences of said war. But of course, he's gonna leave, and then they're gonna try to track him down. They're gonna track his team down, and then he's gonna sit there and cry, "Oh, how come you're bombing my state?" Yeah, the IDF is bombing your state because of the fact that you started the war by raping children and raping women on October 7th. Do we not remember this? It just does not make any sense. 1,000 people were killed on that day, and you're sitting here in another country, protected in a 5-star hotel. Save me the tears. Save me the crocodile tears, because I do not want to hear it whatsoever. With that being said, that's going to do it for this episode of the Demetrius Rougeau Show. If you did like this episode and you do want to see more, I do post new episodes of the show every single Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for listening, and I hope they have a great rest of your day.